मिट्टी में वो अपने सपने और सीज प्यार से जीना वो जीना जो कुदरत के साथ में कितना हंसी ये मौका है तो रह जागृत और सही है जो वो करे हम खड़े हो जिंदगी के साथ सब एक साथ सब एक साथ यही है मौका यही है मौका
I'm Arnab, I'm the general manager of Taj Bengal, and it's a wonderful evening to welcome you all to the hotel. As Koël has already told us to get this room warm enough for the lovely conversation. And I welcome all of you to another exclusive office afternoon with Prabha Kaitan Foundation. Today's media partner is Mind Kolkata. Yeah. Okay, little bit of Koël. Koël is an award-winning actress, producer, writer. Anything else which I am missing out?
TV host. Mother.
TV host. Mother.
The most difficult part of my job.
And we have all seen her on the couch, interviewing multiple actor, actress, heads of state. Wonderful. And she scripted this Mummy's Dead in Paris, which got debuted in Paris, as well as the new book. And that's what we are all going to talk about, Clearly Invisible in Paris. Wonderful, read a gist of it. So, not keeping you away, let's invite Karishma. Karishma Mehta is a lawyer, banker, and a SAS woman of Bombay. And she's multifaceted and professional. And she's a literary enthusiast as well. So let's hear it from Karishma and then we'll get going. Thank you.
Koël, Purie, Rinchet.
Not bad at all, better than I said.
With absolute fear when I said that. It's an absolute pleasure to be in conversation with you. You grabbed another hyphen this week. You are now a actor, TV host, producer, playwright, and now a newly published author. These are super exciting times for you. Koël, you've said somewhere that you are a born storyteller and your life is a film set. I think it was
Yes,
you did, and it stayed with me clearly. And this year, for the first time, you've explored two mediums of storytelling. Your first was your play as a playwright, Mummy's Dead, Long Live Mummy, and your debut novel, Clearly Invisible in Paris. You've received a huge applause for the dark yet humorous play which resonated with many women, especially mothers. And also you're going to end your year with Zoya Akhtar's Archies. And between these acts is your compelling and very evocative read. It's a real must-read. So let's talk about your writing, films, and everything in between.
I love this introduction because I think women feel this more than men. We have our lives, we have our careers, we have our ambitions, we have everything. And then we have kids, and somewhere everything becomes, no matter how ambitious you are, no matter how successful you are, something has to give, right?
Absolutely.
Something does give. It's always a juggle. And I don't want to get into gender politics here, but it is the women who have to do that, right? Invariably it is that. So to hear all this after a long hiatus of not being in the forefront, not just because I'm a mother, but also because I'm no longer in India, and this is the whole point of the book, and we'll talk about that, of starting from scratch again, from really building up who you are, your identity as a professional person, etc. In a land where you don't speak the language. So, a bit complicated. So to hear all this, in the old days I would be like, cringe here, and this is like Michelle Yeoh said, there is no such thing as your prime. So I'm taking it, I'm accepting it, and I'm owning it, and I'm saying thank you. This is it.
You're living your best life.
Yeah, I am. I am, and I'm grateful for it.
Okay, Koël, tell us, when did your romance with writing begin? When is it that you decided to want to be a writer?
I see this often enough. I'm a middle child, so I'm a born natural attention seeker because it's always like, maybe who, hello, yes, the older one, yes, the younger one, but I'm also. So, permanent attention seeker. Therefore, I used to weave stories. Anything that happened had to be embellished and told in the most wonderful way. So, I think I was a born storyteller, for sure. In fact, my grandmother, who's Punjabi, used to call me Kaposti, which means that someone who tells a lot of gup, tells a lot of stories, right? And just makes up stories. So I was always Kaposti. And so this idea of inventing, of being imaginative, of telling stories to get attention, because at the end of the day, it's all about attention. So to get the attention has always been there. When did I actively start writing? I don't know. I'm not a diary keeper, so I didn't write one of those Dear Diary things at all. But I have been writing since as far as I can remember, like even publicly for
Television.
For television, but before that, articles about travel,
Right.
about being a teenager, just random stuff.
Columns.
Because columns. When I look back, I wrote a lot of non-fiction then. So yes, I've been writing for a very long time.
So you've had your romance with writing for as long as you remember.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think so.
that's
Well,
probably-
let's not say writing, let's say telling
Telling
stories
stories.
in whatever medium.
Storytelling.
In whatever medium, right? Yeah.
Okay, so when you talk about authors and you think that, you almost always believe that every author has a process, right? And when I imagine an author writing a book, I imagine the author in some secluded, really beautiful, very serene, home, sitting down and furiously typing into a laptop, right?
I also imagine that. Yeah, I also imagine that, but it's not
coming to you. You are a lady who wears very many chic hats, very many hats. You're a mom, you run a house. So tell me, what is your process? Tell us and take us through your writing process.
So, I also, very much like what you've said, Karishma, this idea of going up into a log cabin somewhere in the Himalayas or up in, let's say, the Riviera or, in France somewhere and write away for 3-4 months, 6 months. Who has this luxury? I want to know, who are these people who have no other commitments in life where they can just go off like this? I certainly don't, right?
Exactly. I said, let's go, get back to earth and tell us what is your process.
Writers do, right? We know this, that writers do go lock themselves up
Absolutely.
and come up. Sometimes I wonder if I had that luxury, would I be coming up with a masterpiece? Who knows? Maybe I wouldn't be able to write at all. So what's my process? I think my process is the first, if I've just started the process of writing, then I spend at least 3-4 hours procrastinating. So, no, genuinely, even if I open my computer, I'll say now, of course, there's Instagram, but even before there was Instagram, suddenly very important email to send or something I have to read about, something that happened in Bolivia that I heard about, like whatever, right? Or a table that needs to be sorted out. So that takes at least 3-4 hours before I can get even one word in. But that phase of procrastination, when you're in the flow, when you're in a rhythm and when you're in a discipline, becomes shorter and shorter. So in day 1, it might be 3 hours. Day 2, 3, day 4, by day 7, you have reduced it to 1 hour, but it's still there. It has to be there, right? That moment of literally fooling around and just, But once I start, at least with this book, once I started to put my words on the pen to paper, or however you say it, for pen to paper, how do you say it for computer when you start putting the
I
first...
just end up furiously typing.
Furiously typing, right? So once I furiously start typing, it just was a question of blocking everything else out, because a lot of the times I would just about be in the rhythm of things and it would be time to pick up my daughter, right? And I'm in France and we don't have family around, so it was always like mostly me. I mean, I have a lovely housekeeper and stuff, but mostly me who'd pick up my daughter and things. So you have to pick her up, but you're dying now. Now by this point you don't have a bone of procrastination, you don't have a moment of procrastination. You're dying to get on with the story.
On the flow.
So you're in the flow. So then I have to wait till the house is quiet again, till all the chaos of having a young. I only have one child, thank God, but of my daughter going to bed, etc. Everything is quiet again, and I will work through the night. Some of us are nocturnal creatures, and lately I'm beginning to embrace it. I'm refusing to feel guilty about this. Normally you're like, I have to start going to bed early, I have to wake up early, that's the good thing to do, that's the right thing to do. No, you have to get enough sleep. And yes, you should go to bed at whatever time you want to. But
You're
if
just
you're
wired differently. I agree. I'm a nocturnal person, so I get it.
Right?
I think we're just wired differently. And I never thought of it that we should accept it. I'm still in the process of fighting it.
But I'm not, because
Maybe
it's
I will take a page from your book.
Because at the end of the day, I'm a finisher. I finished my book, whether it's good or bad, I finished it. Now, if I did it in the middle of the night by doing it, that makes me more productive than 50% of the population. So who's to tell me go to sleep at 10 o'clock? Did you write a book? No. So don't tell me.
Wow.
Amazing. So now we get
no guilt about going to bed
there
early.
is productivity in chaos.
There is productivity
productivity
within the chaos.
Within the chaos.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you also said that writing is cathartic. You love writing. But you also are a part of so many other art forms. So what does writing do to you that the other art forms do?
So if anyone asks me what's your preferred, art form, it will always be acting.
Okay.
But writing gives me complete autonomy. I am the sole creator and controller of every single syllable that I write.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am not in charge of not only just, how will the role turn out, or what will happen, or what, just even getting the role. Right? So just even getting the idea of acting, or I need a platform, whether it's the stage or whether it's a film or television, there are 100 other people involved. Now, whether the second part of a book gets published or not and then gets marketed, that's a different part of it. But to finish from beginning till end, I am the master of my own work. And that is what writing gives me. I am in full control of the process of creating this. This is my baby.
Yeah.
No one else can tell you. And yes, then the editing comes, then the other process. But it's you, and you have full control over it. So if there are any aspiring writers here and you're not writing, then you only have yourself to blame. I'm sorry.
Okay, now coming back to the book, which I'm sure everyone's really interested to know about. So what was the trigger for this book? What compelled you to write this book?
So many things. I think it doesn't happen, maybe it does, maybe it will happen with another project for me too, and maybe it happens for other people. It doesn't happen that a creative process suddenly goes, bingo, and here we are, and now I have this idea. A lot of little things feed into together, right? Little things that you have noticed, people that you've interacted with, experiences you've had, and they start building and festering inside you till you start writing something and you're like, ooh, okay, I would like to take this further, and I would like to take this further. And I think the first seed of it was friendships that I wouldn't have normally made if I wasn't living out of India, if I wasn't living out of my little cozy little ecosystem of comfort and, bubble. And although being an actor, you do have, you have cross-generational friendships, you have cross socio-economic division friendships. You have all kinds of friendships in the industry, and especially in India and things like that. But just the diversity of the people that I was meeting, just their stories, and across the board, what was resonating was just how these women felt alone. How, in spite of being so amazing in whatever they were doing, a lot of the women I was meeting, they felt isolated, they felt on the periphery of society. And I was looking at them going, but you're such a success, or you're such a inspiration, or how can you say that, or whatever it is I was thinking. But there was a common thread. And once I picked up on that common thread, the story just kept coming and coming and coming.
So there was really no one moment that you knew that this is what I want to do. I want to pen this all down, put it all down, and it was just a process. Like it all came together, and then you just,
the other day my husband said to me, actually, he goes, oh my, because he just finished the book, and he's like, how come, because I didn't let him read it till we had the actual copy and stuff. So he's like, oh my God, how the beginning connect. It's like a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, so right? How does it connect to this? Wow, like how did you think of this right in the beginning? I was like, the honest truth is I didn't think of it like that. So everyone's process is different. For me, I never dried up of an idea. Whenever I was writing something, I went with whatever was happening. And I discovered, which was told to me, that I method write, which apparently is I'm experiencing things and therefore writing them, or at least I'm not experiencing everything. If someone's committing suicide, I'm not experiencing that, but I'm experiencing the emotion that might get you there. What does it mean to be there? So just like I would do with acting, where I would go and interview people or talk to people or go and spend some time with someone or actually go experience something. I was doing that for my writing without realizing that this is not actually the norm. But who's to say what's the norm in a creative process, right? So when especially for this book, but a lot of my writing is like that, a lot of my creation is like that, you start. The hardest part is starting, right? Once you start, it comes and it comes and it comes. And sometimes it's utter rubbish and you throw it out of the window, right? But it comes non-stop. And even the connections of how it all flows and how the jigsaw fits together, it happened organically. It literally happened as I was writing it. It's a little bit idiotic, I feel, to say, I was just a channel for this story. But sometimes I literally feel that. I know it sounds so, I don't know, it sounds so, pompous and things to say that. But at some level, I do feel that. Like at the end, by the time I was, let's say 2-3 chapters in and I knew where I was going with it, all I struggled with was, when do I have time to be in front of it? When do I have the time to write? There was never a question of, I don't have enough to say.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it just flowed. And
hence you thought that you were
a channel for this.
You were a channel, you just were a medium by which this had to be said and put out in the world.
Right? I know, it sounds pretentious, but it's not. It really felt like that. It was literally like, and Laurent would see me, my husband would see me sometimes, and I'd be talking to him and suddenly saying, where are you? Because my eyes have gone somewhere else. And then I've left the room because suddenly I'm noticing something and I'm like, where's a piece of paper? Because memory is so short now that literally if I've thought of this amazing life-changing idea, if I don't write it down that minute, it's gone. It's gone.
Okay, so now go and tell us something about your novel. Tell us something about Clearly Invisible in Paris and about those 4 characters. Tell us something in short about each of those characters.
So, it's a book about friendships, right? But just as the name suggests, Clearly Invisible, I like contradictions. I like the fact that these things don't fit together. So just like that, these 4 women who are my central characters, there are many, many characters in the book, but there are these 4 women who are my central characters, they don't fit together. They literally don't. if one of them was to walk, or some of them, apart from maybe Neera, was to walk into this room, it would be like, oh, hello, what are you doing here? Who invited you? Right? It is like that. And yet they become each other's shoulders to cry on, full support, people who will hold your hand through the dark, even if it's the person you would not want to go and have a coffee with. You know, even if it's not the person that is your buddy or whatever, but it's become is basically savior of your soul, and vice versa. So I have 4 characters. One of them is an Indian, she's from Jalgaon, but she has moved her way up in Bombay and moved up to society. So she can be called a Mumbai socialite, but then she eventually burns all her bridges in Mumbai and ends up in Paris, married to an aging producer-director, French aging producer-director who's amazing. And they have this amazing, wonderful, pure love for each other much later in life, because she's, you know, in her middle age, I would say. Like, she's in her 40s, right? The thing is, middle age keeps changing as you grow older, right? Ask my daughter in 40 is suddenly like, oh my god, I'm like, okay, think of 102, right? Anyway, so they meet later in life, etc. Now you would think, and I'm giving too much of the book away, but who cares? Okay, you'll still read it, right? You'll still buy it. So they meet later in life, etc. But this, their marriage is not what normal marriages would be. There are many flaws between both of them. There are affairs, there's all kinds of things, but they remain each other's best, people, they remain each other's people, basically. They are each other's people. And there is so much love. So why I tell you this, and this is just one flow, the book is not written chronologically, so you will not hear it like you will not read it the way I've just told it to you, right? But you will figure it out as we go along. Why I told you this is because that's the point of this, that no relationship is what it seems to be, whether it's friendship or a romantic relationship or a parental relationship or any kind of relationship works in grays. You know, most of us are not black and white. And if we are, then either we have the relationship, for me, okay, now this may sound judgmental, for me, if it is very clear in black and white, then I find it very superficial, that I am not actually invested in it, that I'm not, I operate in the grays. I'm all about that. I'm all about flaws, not always accepting them, but always noticing them at least, mine and other people's. And so that you have this character, Neera, who's just got absolutely no reason to be angry, and the addict that she is of all kinds of substances, and she's such a self-sabotaging woman that you're like, what do you have to be angry about? That's the point, right? Like, that is the whole point. Who are we to judge anything?
Dichotomy.
Yeah.
The whole situation.
Clearly invisible, right? And then we have my favorite character, Violet, who's a transgender woman who was born Vafi, and she's from Senegal, and she's a very successful burlesque dancer in France now, but completely broke. You'll find out why she's completely broke and all the things that she goes through and the dark past that she has. You want to say something about her? Yeah.
No, go for it. I'm loving the fact that you said she's your favorite, because after reading the book, Neera is my favorite, which is exactly what we were talking about. That every book resonates differently with each one of us, right? Why is Neera my favorite? Just because of the dichotomy of her life. As you said, there's one end of her life where she is incredibly, like, she's leading this crazy debaucherous, right? And then there's the other end where her love for her husband is unwavering. That loyalty, that love is literally, a piece of art. Like the way she loves him. And that dichotomy of that woman is what I think drew me to the character. Violet, I can understand why you say that she's yours.
Can I just say, I'm floored that someone's describing my characters like this. I love this. Tell me more. Seriously, like
They've all come here to listen to you talk.
but this is someone who's read the book, and it's so. I'm new to this, right? I'm new to the fact that people will read my words. I write for me. I love my own writing, right? I write for me. I go back to some of my old articles and I was like, wow, you wrote that?
You did a really good job.
I think people do that. They look at themselves, their
Not
past
everyone
work.
accepts it, as you said.
I do. I write for myself. But when someone is talking like this, especially about a book and stuff, I'm so. But just diverting from that, we'll come back to the 4 characters. This is true of any art form, right? When you're an artist of any kind, whether you make a painting, a building, a book, or whatever it is, once you have done it, your work is complete. But the art is not complete. The art only gets complete by the beholder, by the interpreter. So therefore, every person who reads the book will have a different interpretation that will complete my book, and it will always be subjective. Because what you get from it, and let's say you read it 5 years later, right?
Maybe.
You will get something completely different from it because you'll be in a different point in your
Different
life.
space in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. That's why I said it resonates differently with each of us, and especially a book like yours, especially a book like Great Paris. Will each one of you, when you read that, there will be a part, each character, you feel there are bits and parts of you in some characters, not all of it obviously, but that is when you know that the author has done such a great job that she's managed to link you to that book in some ways and forms.
I find it fascinating that because when you write and you, especially as I say, I like my writing, and I'm writing these gorgeous feelings and emotions about Meera, for instance, of how she loves her husband, and you're trying not to make it cheesy because it's pure and it's coming from a place. I'm so happy to hear that comes across. It does come across, that feeling comes across, because when you read it, you'll understand that if someone was to give you the facts, you're like, you don't love your husband. You're an awful person. How can anyone even say this? Because that is who these characters are. They are very great.
Yeah, they are very great.
So I like that you got that.
I got that. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a brief?
I'll give a very brief. So we have Violet, who's this burlesque dancer, and then we have Dasha, who's a barely 17-year-old, Insta-scouted Russian wannabe supermodel. But this was the big eye-opener for me in Paris, that I don't know the modeling world so well, because I'm an actor. They're very separate worlds, the modeling world. But how many people, obviously Paris is the capital of chic, how many people come there just wanting to make it, and how many burn out and sort of fade away even before they're 20? And they're literally treated like cattle. And one out of them will become a Bella Hadid. That's it. Just one.
Yeah.
Most of and then they don't live a glamorous life, yet they have to look so goddamn glamorous all the time, because you could be spotted at any moment, any point, but you're literally going back to live in a tiny little room with bunk beds being shared with other models, etc., etc.
So it's
barely having food to eat. No money, no nothing. And if you make money, you'd rather spend it on makeup and clothes than on food. So it's a whole other, so I found that very interesting. How young they were, how young they are. This is what I find interesting. So that's Dasha. And then the last character who eventually becomes, and she, even though she's not my favorite character in some way, like I said, Violet, but I had the most fun writing her because she's the most removed from my own reality, was Roselle. Roselle is a Filipina housekeeper who escapes the clutches very early on from the Kuwaiti employer, who's literally, believes that an all-rounder basically means slave for life, right? So she escapes this, and in fact, this particular moment, it's literally the first moment of the book, is based on a lot of things are based on true stories and then they go somewhere else, right? But the actual escape of how this meek little Filipina who wouldn't even raise her eyes to look at someone, how she jumps out of a building and escapes in Paris. It blew my mind, and that kind of became the starting point of
the book.
Yeah.
But that's, in that where she actually, when she manages to escape, she has to get to a point and she doesn't know how to pronounce it. And then, Koël has written, imagine, and because Rosa was thinking that imagine, I have done the bravest thing I have done in my life is to escape this Kuwaiti lady to be defeated by pronunciation. Because when you ask the French something, no offense, please no offense, and you don't say it right, they just look through you, which is exactly.
Now that part is from personal experience. Okay? I mean, that part is from personal experience because I can't tell the difference between tu and do. Like, sorry, मेरे लिए सब कुछ तू ही है. So then if you don't say it exactly in the right pitch, in the right key, that you stand, it's the end of my life. Then it's like, come on, chupa longe, no, come on. It's permanently like that. And so street names are impossible. So, Rue Saint-Honoré, how is it spelled? Saint Hon, her, no, how do you, Honoré. Oh, I can't even say it now. Rue Saint-Honoré. Champs-Élysées, how is it spelled? Right? So it's Champs-Élysées, and Champs-Élysées is the big one. Champs-Élysées, Champs-Élysées, Arey yaar, come on, why are you going to write all these syllables if you're not going to pronounce them? And like, we don't know that there are so many silent letters in.
So that
Lost in pronunciation, I tell you. That's what the book should be called.
Okay, so now that you said this, taking a thread from that, tell us how much of your reality is present in this novel. Did you feel invisible when you moved to Paris? You've mentioned it in an interview that after the honeymoon period where the city is over, you realize that there is a difference between visiting a city and living in one. It's practically impossible for you to feel invisible anywhere. I understand that, but I'm just saying that it's
I love that Karishma has stalked me. I love it. I love it.
I said I'm an Insta stalker.
I love it.
Tell me, did you?
I'll tell you a little anecdote, right? I was 17 years old, quite a popular, confident Indian kid when I went to the UK to study for the first time, right? And I walked around there and I was like, what is wrong with me? And there was culture shock and there was this idea of, okay, you're young, you're in a new place, you're spoiled, you're all those things. So you're kind of like, fine. That's the whole point of education in some way. You're finding your own way around. And I was in this shitty little crammer in Cambridge, etc., doing my A-levels. And I was like, no one's looking at me. What is wrong with me? And then I realized that in India, we're so used to everyone staring at everyone all the time, openly, that when people are just merely minding their business, we think we're invisible. No, but this is true. It took me a long time. It literally took me a long time to be okay with not being looked at. Imagine. It's the opposite, right? I couldn't deal with it. Like the foreigners come here and they're like, oh, gosh, everyone's staring. It's too much. The gaze is too much. But for us, it's so harmless. Yeah, we check people out. We look at people openly. You're in the metro, you're in the bus, you're in the street, you're in the airport. You're looking. You want to look, you look. You know when that look becomes invasive and when it isn't. I don't know how we know this, but we know this, right? But we look. But there, no one looks. So, especially in UK, that was my first moment of feeling invisible, and I did not like it. Middle child syndrome again. Nobody is. No. Hello. So anyway, now you can come back to your question.
So my question was also about the book. Like, did you specifically for Paris? Did you feel invisible in Paris? Because there's some amount of reality. Is your reality also manifested in this book in some?
100%. I mean, there is like I say, I'm method writing, right? So a lot of the emotion, the experiences, a lot of the traits of all the characters, even the smaller characters, not just the protagonist, have bits and pieces of me. But then, this is the beauty of fiction, that you can take it anywhere. So 1 minute I could be talking to you and the next minute I could be jumping out of the window. That is fiction, right? And this is, but that's the beauty that I love. Like, I love imagining things. So when you read my book, there'll never be, oh, this one is so-and-so, this is what happened at this particular, oh, we know this event, or we know. You won't, because it's not like that. And it's not meant to be like that. There is not a single character based on a particular person.
Right.
there are threads taken from many real things and then reimagined and developed and fleshed out and taken wherever I feel like. The power of fiction, right? Like really, you can just go anywhere with it. But in terms of this feeling of invisibility, this 100% is a feeling that I have felt more strongly in Paris than anywhere else in the world. I mean, it's bizarre, but a lot of the French, not French, because there is a difference between Paris and France. Let's be clear about this, right? There is a very big difference. In fact, such a big difference that sometimes my daughter, who's half French, when we step out of Paris, and she's full Parisian, right? So, but when we step out of Paris, she's like, Mama, he's so nice. He's just being normal. You know, like she says this to a taxi driver or a waiter or anyone who's dealing with her. She's like, Mama, he was so nice. It's like, no, baby, he was just not Parisian. That's all. That's all. But one of the things that repeats itself in my life in Paris is I'm constantly telling people, and now I just stopped, but telling people and telling myself, I'm fun. Like, I'm fun. Be my friend. Why are you not? Like, and I don't just mean it like be my friend. I have a huge social life. I go out all the time. I meet people all the time. But it all stays at the same level. You know, you don't just suddenly go from, whether it's professionally, whether it's personally, whether you don't suddenly build. You're not just going, okay, I did this, now I'm building on this, now I'm building on this. It just doesn't happen. Of course, it will happen, but it takes that much more effort. And I come from Delhi, which is like, you know, Delhi snobs. I mean, come on, we're the snobbiest people in the world, right? Everyone, and especially privileged section of Delhi. It's very much, so if you can survive Delhi, you can survive anywhere, except Paris. Except Paris. Did I move to Paris? I was like, what's the big deal? It's just a question of language. Like, I'll get it once I get the French, which else I didn't get. So once I get the French, it'll be okay. You know, what's the big deal? It's just a big metropolitan city. I've lived in London, I've lived in Tokyo, which I had a great time in. I've lived in all these places, it'll be okay. But no, Paris is unique like that. It alienates you. It works on alienating you. And I don't like to be alienated. No one likes to be alienated. But like, this is what I'm saying. I'm permanently going, I'm fun. Don't alienate me. Forget anything else. I'm just fun. You know, like, why would you not? Why don't you want to include me? Forget you don't want to talk about, you know, talent, wealth, beauty, none of them, which I'll come with all of it, but you don't want to talk about any of it. Just let's talk about, I'm fun, right? But no, so yes, I feel that part of it is very much in my own personal experience.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, so also now let's talk about the book in a way that when I read it, you've infused so much empathy in your characters that I couldn't help but feel the loneliness, the urgency, the sisterhood, nostalgia, and above all of this was the hope that these 4 diverse characters felt as immigrants in a land that they all are just yearning to call home.
Yes.
Yeah. And so tell me, you've been there for 5 or 6 years now? You had a similar yearning? Did you, like, because again, I mean, you wouldn't typically fit the image of an immigrant in my mind or anybody's mind, but still, when you are in Paris, you are an immigrant. You still have to go through the whole process of, getting your citizenship and, the paperwork and blah, blah. So did you also have a similar yearning like these?
It's a very interesting question, because who gets to be an expat and who gets to be an immigrant? Right?
Fair enough.
It's a very, very interesting question, and it's a question that's a burning question in Europe right now. So is it wealth? Is it the color of your skin? Is it where you come from, your job? Who gets to be an expat? So am I an expat? Am I an immigrant? I don't know, right?
Yeah, because if you fit an image of an expat.
But I'm not, because I didn't come as an expat to Paris. I went as an expat to Tokyo. We did, but because Laurent is French, I came back to France as his wife, and we came back as normal people, not as expats, as repatriated people. That I became an immigrant. I'm an Indian passport holder. I am only there by the benevolence of the state because I am married to a Frenchman. When COVID happened, this is when I first realized I'm not the same passport as my family. And so when they were evacuating people from Wuhan right at the beginning, because France didn't do this, which is why France is quite amazing like that because of the whole fraternity and equality tenets that it follows. But the other countries like Britain, America, when they were evacuating their own people and they didn't have enough flights and enough places on those planes, the emergency planes, they literally pulled the passport card. So there were Brits who were married to, for instance, and I was reading about this, Thai women for the last 25 years, right, with kids who happened to have British passports instead of having Thai passports. They left the Thai people behind, right? Like your own wife. And I was like, Indian passport, I will just be left.
Yeah.
I'll be, if suppose, because at that point you didn't know how scary it was, especially in Europe, because we really had it bad then. So this kind of panicked urgency started coming into me of like, I'm an immigrant.
Like those women, like
those women, like your passport is literally not even worth the paper, that it's written on. That I need to become French. That urgency has now disappeared. I'm still very much an Indian citizen. But this feeling of being an immigrant, yes, I know it does. I don't fit the mold of being an immigrant because we all imagine immigrants being refugees standing in lines and not having work and stuff. An immigrant is just someone who's longing to call a place they live in home. And no, Paris, as much as I want it to be, I still call it home, but it doesn't feel like home.
So now, as you said, acceptance. So my next question is, let's talk about acceptance. So there is a part in your book where you said, yet, would they ever be considered Parisians? Did the city claim not so extraordinary citizens as its own? What made someone feel at home? Can you describe these feelings for us?
Well, this is exactly what we were talking about, right? What is home? Like, it's very interesting. And this is a question that repeats itself in me because I've lived in so many different places. What is home? Because I certainly can't move back to India now, because if I would, it would be in Delhi. Delhi, to bring up a young girl, if you don't have to, better not to, right? Like, with all the pollution, with all just the fact that you have to have eyes on your child like 24 hours, I'm privileged not to have to go through that, right? So I don't want to move back to Delhi. India will always be home because it's a feeling inside. But do I want to live here? Perhaps not. Perhaps not. Do I want to work here? Yes, please. I want to work here non-stop. I mean, Bombay is like, an explosion of work right now for someone like me. So it's a complicated question. And then yet, I really thought about it. What is home? Home is just a feeling. And where do I feel, sorry Laurent, but where do I feel most at home? I feel most at home on a film set. And I don't care where it is.
Yeah. Okay, the other thing about the book which stands out when you read it is it's incredibly descriptive, which means it's also, and the other thing is that it's also very well researched. And I'm going to, talk a little bit about it. Like, there is an image, like very few books or very few authors can do this. This is your debut novel and you still managed to do this. Is the image the image stays with you, right? So you've spoken about how poor families in Philippines request undertakers to inject formaldehyde into the cadavers to keep them from decaying while the family strings together money needed for a ritualistic Catholic funeral because it's incredibly expensive there. This was just like, this is coming into a book like this and you're just like, she's gone all the way in to research it to the T. So tell us about your research process as well.
So, it works both ways, especially this example. It works both ways. I do a lot of research, but does the research come first? It's a chicken and egg in all the time. So, for instance, one of the characters, I'm not going to give it away, one of the characters had to have, before the story even begins, a dead partner, right? A deceased husband. And so that was already in my head that she needed to have that because that was her trigger to be in Paris, etc., blah, blah. And then I came across an article, I think it was either in the Time magazine or the New Yorker or something, and I came across this article about the Duterte wars at that time because he was doing all these drug wars, against Chinese people. And so there were a lot of unclaimed bodies that would just have mass graves, and or they would end up as cadavers for experiments in the hospital, etc. And this didn't sit well with a lot of the families because they're very Catholic, and therefore the souls are not freed if you don't give them a proper Catholic ritual and burial, etc. And this image, this article was just so horrifying. This image stayed with me so then I went deeper and deeper into, so what do they do? So if they know that do they just leave the body unclaimed? Even when they know that it's their kin, how do they deal with it? And then one article, then another article, till I finally discovered, I don't know how many of the people do this, but the fact that it exists, that you go to an undertaker and you pay the undertaker money so that he will come and inject your poor kin with formaldehyde to stave off decay, and then this body just lies there in your living room.
Outside your house.
Outside your house. Because, they didn't give the details of whether it was outside the house, but then I was like, how do these people live? So if they have the body and the body is not in the morgue because they don't have money to keep the body in the morgue, so then it's literally, it would have to be on your street or it would have to be in your house. And then I couldn't sleep for nights because I was like, this image wouldn't leave me. And then it became, okay, so this is how it has to be. How did this person die? Then how did they do it? And then it became, they sit and play cards. I removed a lot of that from the book.
No,
right?
you have it.
But there is more to it. There's an actual ritual called abuye. And it's a Filipino term, a Tagalog term, where they sit there and they gamble. And the money goes towards the funeral expense. There's so much sadness in the world, right? So there was all this that was happening, but yet there's, like you say, I love that you say that there is hope. Because this character goes through all this and yet she comes out of it so strong and so hopeful.
Graceful. Even after what happens to her right at the end. Okay, so now let's talk about a little bit about you in Paris, which we have been. But the most common, again, I am apologizing to you through this interview, but the most common stereotype that circulates about the French is that they lack warmth. And you yourself have kind of mentioned in the book saying that imagine the shame of being available all the time in the city of aloof. Okay? And look at you. You're this incredibly, fun-going, effervescent, witty, as you say that, I'm fun, personality. And how did you adjust to Paris? Also, you've also written something which was very interesting, that Parisians compartmentalize their relationships in segregated functional boxes. Let's have a coffee friend. Meet her at the museum friend. That I need some local advice friend. Gossip and window shopping friend. New classical friend. Trending restaurant and dinner couple friend. So, culturally, such a diverse place to go and live and call home. So, how did you adjust to that? Coming from,
it's not in past tense, Karishma.
No, it's not.
I'm sorry, not how did I adjust? I still haven't. So let's be clear about it. How did I adjust? I'm not true to the other side. In spite of writing this book, I am very much in that. How am I adjusting? I'm not. Which is why I'm writing this book.
Especially when you come from puppy, jumpy, happy Delhi,
No, there's a lot of puppies which I am like, oh my God, also I cannot adjust, okay? This constant kissing of this constant kissing of you meet them, you kiss, you go away, you kiss, oh hello, congratulations, kiss. And it's always twice and it's always, I'm like, please. And no one hugs, and it's so funny because the kissing is less intimate for the French than hugging. But if we're not comfortable with someone, we'll give a side hug and move on, right? So then especially after the pandemic, I adopted the very good namaste. It's everyone was namaste. Even Laurent started doing the namaste. Right? He was I can't be kissing all these strangers. So we were all of us were doing the namaste. But coming to this compartmentalized thing, it's not French. It's very Parisian. I have to say that the experience in France would be very different. It's something that is, the pace of life in Paris is extremely fast, right? And this idea of you schedule everything to make it easier to live. So yes, I find it the city. Yes, it can be called. I find it a city of polarity. You know, at one level you say it's a city of romance, but it's the coldest city in the world, right? Everyone experiences that. That you don't have. That people are standoffish. The Parisians are chic, and they're known for that, and they're snobbish and all that. And yet it's known as the city of romance, right? The city of love, like. So there's that polarity, and then you have the city of light, but there is a lot of darkness that goes on in Paris. There's a lot of strife that goes on in Paris, right?
Yeah.
Struggle. So every time I'm kind of like, I'm done, I'm packing my suitcase, I'm going back to Bombay, I'm a big deal there, okay? Like, in my head, I'm like this. This is like routinely, at least it's become less and less, but it used to be once a month. I'm ready, I'm going, I'm booking my ticket. And then I'd go for a run or something, and I'd look around, and there is no prettier city to live in than in Paris. I mean, it is just...
And it takes your breath away each time,
takes my breath away. It literally does.
Yeah.
I mean, just the cityscape. Rome is not like that. London, Jaipur is not like that. You know, these are beautiful cities.
Yeah.
London is not like that. Budapest is not like that. Paris is beyond stunning. And it's simple. You know, I cycle everywhere. You can walk it's a walking city. There's always something to do. The cafe culture, the museum culture, the theater culture. And none of it is expensive. Which, like, actually all the museums for under 18-year-olds are free across the board. Right? And even for the permanent collections for anyone is free. You can walk into these stunning buildings and just spend the whole day. There is no other city like Paris. And when I look around and I'm like, you live here. Like, people complain of this air while you're just going, how is the sky so indigo, right? Like, just that. And all of this other stuff just becomes noise. It literally becomes noise because I'm really having a love affair with my husband and with Paris. You know?
Okay, so now coming to the end of the book, one of your characters say that, I guess that's the moment you went from being an immigrant to a Parisian. Now, Koël, have you had your series of moments or an experience where you genuinely felt like a light bulb moment that said that, now I feel that I'm a Parisian? Or did it just happen gradually?
I don't think I ever want to be Parisian. Let's be very clear about that. So I am not going to have that light bulb moment. But there are some moments where I'm going, you're becoming Parisian. Not the but the you're becoming Parisian. And some of those moments are like when someone goes, hey, you want to meet for a coffee tomorrow? And I'm like, no, how about March 26th? You know? And what? How is your calendar so booked up? And that's a very Parisian thing, right? Your calendars get really booked up way in advance. You schedule everything, you slot everything. And that's not the Indian way. The Indian way is very much like, okay, I'm coming, I'm just going to sit on your sofa and not talk to you. You know, like, this is what like friendships are in India. That doesn't exist I'm finding so there are moments where I feel, gosh, you're so Parisian, right? Like, but that's not I don't want to be Parisian. I want to be Indian. I want to be an Indian in Paris.
Fair enough. Well said to that. Okay. Now, quickly about, can you tell us about, you are going to play a role in Zoya Akhtar's upcoming movie Archies. Can you just touch upon that lightly?
So when Zoya, sent the script of Archies and stuff, I was like, okay, Zoya, only the best director of our country at the moment, right? Without doubt. Like, Gully Boy just sealed that for her. Like, she's top of the game, etc. Every single person wants to work with her, all that. I was like, what is she doing Archies, right? Like, it's a bit Zoya, Archies, where's the connect? And even after I read the script, it was like, okay, fine, but I'm doing it, it's Zoya, she's an old friend, And then I ended up on set. And the world she's created. So this is her period film, believe it or not, right? And it's her Archies, but it's a period film. It's Zoya's period film. So it's not a period film like Mughal-e-Azam and stuff, but it's a period film where Mad Men meets Enid Blyton, set in India. And so we are like, especially the parents, and we of course play the parents, which was in a whole other shock. Because I'm like, I'm not playing Veronica, what do you mean?
I'm Veronica.
Like, okay, so I think like a decade or two off, but whatever, like, hello. But leaving that aside, right? The parents are the real delinquents and the kids are the real sort of, and it's set in the 1960s, post-colonialism, but in an Anglo-Indian make-believe community up in the hills called Riverdale, right? And so it's a make-believe community, and these parents, they're mixed or they're not, but they're very much Anglophiles, right? And they love the Queen and they love everything about the Brits and all that. And the kids are very Indian and very rooted and all about doing the right thing, etc. So the parents are really the delinquents. And the way that we were styled and dressed, so fun, like pedal pushers, big bobs like that. I have a cigarette holder. I'm a baker, but I'm baking and smoking at the same time. It's very 1960s, the whole pointies, the works, right? It's so beautiful. And there is subversion in it, with the kids, because they have this, I'm not going to give the story away, but they have this whole agenda that they take on and they fight for the rights of something. And it's very subversive, so it's quite meaty as well. But it's a world that anyone who watches it, cross-generation, is going to want to be part of it. So I think that's already a winner, if you create this beautiful just setting where people go, hi, I wish I was there. And I just saw, because I was dubbing a few scenes and stuff, and I just saw it, on screen again and stuff. And I was like, oh, I wish I was there. Oh, you were, okay. But I wish I was there again. It's just the cakes and the styling and it's really going to be beautiful. And the kids are fabulous, by the way. All of, because I know everyone wants to know about that. The Gen Z kids, they're extremely talented, super fun to work with, apart from the fact that they are Gen Z, so they're a bit like
Gen Z.
Right, so the attention span is whatever it is. But the fact that what I really like about this generation is they're not scared or ashamed of their ambition. They embrace it. Like our generation, we were like, we want to do this, but half our battle was just accepting that we're so ambitious about something, right? And they're just out there going, I want to be the best at what I do, and they do the homework and they arrive there and they get it done. And they have a sense of humor about their own privilege. So they walk around calling themselves nebos. It's really like they're not walking around with blinkers and going, they're completely aware of the fact that they will have to prove themselves doubly by the mere fact that everyone's going to be watching. Shahrukh ki beti kaise kar rahi hai? Of course they're going to be doing that. And according to me, they've done a fab job, right? They're young actors and they've all shining in this film.
Amazing. So we're all totally looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
One last question before we open the floor to the audience. In July, I suddenly see on my Instagram, there's like a sudden clip on the Instagram where there's Koël on an electric scooter, zipping to the loo, wearing this gorgeous ghagra/skirt, Banarsi skirt, and she's going to attend this state banquet where PM Modi has come. So please tell us, as amazing as that, little video bite was, because I was on a holiday and I was like, oh wow, this is very, very Parisian, of Koël to do that. But tell us, what was honestly the biggest takeaway from that event?
Actually, it's not very Parisian. It's very touristy in some way, all about immigrant behavior in some way, because the Parisians only like to drive. They drive like around the block. They love their car and they love to drive, and no matter how many restrictions Anne Hidalgo is putting on speed limits and parking on one-way streets and stuff, they will still get it. Ask my husband, take the metro, no. we'll go by car, right? Like, and like it's around the corner, right? Like, so
It was a very Koël thing
it's
to
a
do.
very Koël thing to do, let's put it that way. And so Bastille Day, which is the Independence Day, is it the Independence Day? It is the Independence Day, right? Bastille Day. Bastille Day is the Independence Day, is always the most difficult day to get around anywhere because they block all the roads. There is no public transport. You can't drive anywhere. You can't even walk to most places. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be late to this. This is such an opportunity. We're having heads of state, very few people in the Louvre in the middle of the night. Like, wow, right?
When they closed it off to everyone.
They've closed it off to everyone, right? It's just the select few who've been lucky enough to be invited. I'm not going to be late. Laurent was not in town. What am I going to do? I'm going to walk, right? I don't care if it takes me 45 minutes. I left super early, got all dressed up, wore comfortable shoes. Like, I got to walk. So got all dressed up, and then I saw a Lime scooter. And I'm like, let's see how far it'll get me, you know? So I got onto it, and it actually got me right in the Louvre within 20 minutes. I was literally there, and I'd given myself a good hour and stuff and things. So then I caught hold of people on the street and I was like, take a video, I look so cool. I mean, this is quite cool. I'm in my gorgeous couture, because that's the one thing. This is the one thing where we are giving the Parisians a run for their money. When it comes to formal dressing, no matter what they say about the capital of chic and the capital of fashion, no one can turn it out like Indians. We've got it together, right? Our clothes, our jewelry, the way we put it together. And I'm not saying over the top, but just the quality of what we can put out and what they put out. Because now I've been to enough of these galas to see the Arnaults and the Pinots and whatever have you, and see their clothes and things. And I'm like, really? You thought you could come out like that? Like, at least put a comb through your hair, as my mother would say, right? I can't get over how they dress. For casual, chic dressing on the street, wow, no one can beat them. But red carpet dressing, please, have you ever seen any French person who hasn't crossed over? And I mean crossed over is like a Marianne Cotillard or someone who's now become Hollywood. Which French celebrity do you hear of on the red carpet? None. Because they don't know how to do it.
Obviously that now we know that very clearly. We're going to now peel our eyes and see the next, French socialite. What is she wearing?
Literally, they don't know how to do it. There's exceptions, of course. And so, of course, I've turned out my, lovely Indian lehenga, westernized with a top and stuff and all that. End up there. This is an interesting story. I see you wait. You're all ushered into the Louvre. Of course, I'm early. And so there's a band and a red carpet, a brass army band and stuff to welcome each person. So I'm literally solo walking down this, and I'm like, oh God, can someone just film me here? Please, this. I need to remember every moment of this. And as I'm walking, the band starts playing just for me. So I'm like, okay, don't trip, whatever is happening. So it's like a long walk in. And then there are a couple of people, and by now I know quite a few of them because I've been to a few of these, etc. And so I'm saying hello, how are you? Da, 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 da. And then President Macron and Prime Minister Modi will enter obviously after everyone is present. And so we're in the Louvre with all these Italian marble statues and Greek statues and stuff, and you're kind of like, we're in the Louvre, right? It's quite fabulous. And I was like, I need to take a photo, so I just put my bag down. And I was like, and suddenly someone comes and he goes, excuse me, man, that's an artifact. That's a bench. That's the Louvre. It's not your little bag. Sorry, I don't want to be this uncouth Indian. I'm very civilized. Sorry. So it was that. And I have been in conferences and closed, occasions with Prime Minister Modi in India. Where even when it's our own, like the India Today conclave, where he's been our guest and stuff, there is so much security around him that you can't go in there and speak to him. Here it was the complete opposite. Once we all sat down, and there were a lot of people. It wasn't just like, okay, creme de la creme. No, it literally wasn't, right? There were a lot of people and things and stuff. Maybe like 150, 200 people out there. They had a big, long, high table, and then everyone was sitting around. And literally in between after courses and stuff, you could walk around everywhere and talk to. I went and talked to President Macron, I talked to Prime Minister Modi, I talked to President Modi, like long conversations.
And it was really cool selfies as well.
Yeah, they were taking their. I mean, Maddie got the best. Maddie got President Macron to do the selfie. I mean, that was all. This is Madhavan, the actor. I mean, he was on another level, right? But I was like, okay, next time.
No, but you also called it your India moment. Like you said that India was having its moment in France. That's what I want to know about. Like you literally said that you felt it was proud to be an Indian in France, because unlike England or the US, where we have maybe the English-speaking countries, but there is some that it's a very different connect we have to them. France,
the diaspora is different.
Fair enough.
So it's the Indians who are in USA and UK now, firstly, a third, fourth generation, right?
Yes.
They are I wouldn't say they're just American, because whenever you're Indian, regardless of whether you're born, brought up, never even visited India ever, you're Indian. Somewhere it will be there, and if nothing else, it's come from Shah Rukh Khan, right? It's a fact. Like a lot of the young Indians abroad who rejected India have suddenly fallen in love with it because of Bollywood.
Absolutely.
So you will always be Indian no matter where you are in the world, etc. All that. But in France, the Indian diaspora, or the Indian immigrants, for want of a better word, are very spread out. There's no real community of a certain kind, even though most of the managerial heads of all the fashion industry, cosmetic industry, luxury, or even Engie oil, mobile companies, car companies are all Indian and Indian women. Powerful Indian women. And and they're all like my age. And I'm thinking, wow, like CFO, CEO of blah, blah, blah. And you're meeting all these people, and yet there isn't this feeling of, you don't hear of the Indian community in France. You just don't. So this, over the last few years that I've been living there, and this really is something that the ambassador has been working at, and the fact that there are all these managerial positions, and therefore, as I say, no matter where you're born and brought up, once you're Indian, you're Indian. And once you reach there, you want to proclaim that you're Indian no matter what, right? That it is changing. And I literally felt that. And whether, let's not get political, but whatever my political views may be, I was very happy about Prime Minister Modi being present in France for the simple fact that it solidified what is the beginning of this, that Indians are in France. We are at the top echelons of society. We are everywhere, and it needs to be cemented. And him being present on such a public platform really felt like India was having its moment. So that's where it came from.
Fair. But that's exactly what it looked like when you spoke about it. And I was like, that's amazing that because it is France today. I'm so sorry, we're kind of running out of
Koël, how safe do you and your daughter feel in Paris? Because as tourists, we don't feel safe. Like when we were there in Champs-Élysées.
Come on, try it. No, first you try it.
No, it's Champs-Élysées. Is it okay?
No. Come on, everyone say their best. Champs-Élysées. Not bad.
So over there, my daughter was having that Macron moment, taking a picture and all that. And suddenly we see all the policemen and vehicles being burned and things like that. So we were not safe, and then suddenly we realized that her bag was pulled off her shoulder. In our hotel lobby, we were told not to leave the suitcases even for 1 second. So if we who were gone for a couple of days, we feel like that, and I couldn't, my daughter wanted to go there for some workshop or something, I couldn't send her because I felt, how do you feel while staying there? And as you said that you wouldn't want your daughter to be in Delhi, but
so this is exactly what I was going to say, right? Every city has its vices. How safe do I feel in Paris? Completely and totally safe. In spite of being the mother of a very young daughter, she can walk around the corner, take the dog for a walk when she's only 11. I would not think twice about it, right? I would worry about the traffic. I would worry about, because pedestrians are certainly not right, they don't have priority. So in Paris, right, I mean, they're supposed to legally, but they don't. So I would worry about things like that. And I would worry about pickpockets, which I wouldn't worry about with my 11-year-old, right? No, why would I worry? She doesn't know carrying anything. What are they going to pickpocket from her? And they're not going to kidnap her. That does not exist, right? I mean, all these things can happen anywhere. But like the way that you would worry about a young girl alone in... So let's take an example, right? You said you don't feel safe with your child. One of the big reasons I can't move back is all the friends that I'm talking to who have teenage daughters in Delhi, their daughters do not even go to the mall unaccompanied. Even if they're going with a driver somewhere, someone else sits in the car with them. Even if they're going to their friend's house, someone... It's like, how claustrophobic is that? And they're like, are we going to take the chance? No, you're not. You're not going to take the chance. So, in answer to your question, and here again, I'm going to have the, oh gosh, I'm so Parisian. When someone gets their wallet, bag, mobile stolen, I'm like, you deserved it. Like, what are you doing being in Paris, not paying attention? You know it's the capital of pickpocketers, right? How are you just leaving things and walking there? You can't. Just like in Delhi, you are not going to allow your 13-year-old to walk around in tiny little hot pants in the middle of the street. You're just not. I don't care what this leads on to, that it's the gaze of the man and the like, oh, I'm not getting into that, but you're not going to do it in the point of safety. The same way, you're not getting into a metro with your bag open. So when I see Americans like that, when I see them all over the place, their phone here, they're saying, oh, where's the ATM? I'm like, you're going to be picked. You're such a target. Like, you know this is the city of... And then I'm like, stop being like that. You are not Parisian. You don't want to be Parisian. So, no, I feel completely safe. I sometimes walk back, not completely in my, senses, a little bit, a couple of, wines down, etc., dressed how I want, alone in the middle of the night, sometimes by taxi, sometimes by metro, sometimes by my little electric cycle. And they're also worrying about me. I'm not worrying about me. Could I do that in India? I'm not so sure.
Really fun.
Yes!
It's been such a captivating evening and so enthralling. I'd like to bring to everyone's notice the beautiful conversation you had with Madame Macron, where, influenced and intrigued by your conversation, she decided to celebrate Indian culture in the palace. And you brought that up so beautifully that it brings a lot of pride to us as Indians, and you navigated that conversation so beautifully.
She has to still do it. I mean, she's promised. She hasn't done it. So let's see how far that goes, right?
She is, her words are recorded. She cannot go back.
Okay.
From her position, she cannot go back.
I hope so.
So that's something I really need to congratulate you about.
Thank you.
One curiosity I had, that while writing this book, you had such intense feelings with such intense women and such different emotions. Was there any part of you which you discovered about yourself which you were not aware of?
So many. And it's like she said, writing for me is cathartic.
Yes.
So I discovered so many parts, not always pleasant, of myself. And then now I'm stuck in that kind of limbo area of where I'm aware but not able to shift. So like these are my flaws, but what can I do about it? A lot of us are stuck in that place of we know what we're supposed to do but can't do the work or can't get there and things. I discovered so many things about myself.
Which you otherwise won't have.
I suppose. And also... just the noise in my own head calms down when I write. So that, yes, there's noise all around, but there's also a lot of noise in each of our heads, right? The internal chatter. And made worse by all this electronic medium that we, unfortunately are addicted to. And that this internal noise, I wouldn't say gets silent, but calms down. It becomes more just focused, more dealable, more everything like that. So that was a big discovery that unfortunately or fortunately, I can't be sitting idle. And I think you're the same, Karishma. Like, I can't be, and most of you women are probably the same. I can't be sitting idle. I am the worst person, and he will second that. The minute I have nothing to do or I'm not thinking about a project, I am a nightmare to deal with.
And the last question, how did your daughter contribute in this work?
By allowing me to do it. Sometimes.
Thank you so much.
I guess everybody will agree it is full of energy. So much of energy. I have not seen so much of energy in an author's afternoon, in last few authors' afternoons. So much of energy and of course so much of fun. All fun.
This is my epitaph.
Koël is fun. It's really fun. Thank you, Koël. Thank you so much for taking your time out to come all the way to Calcutta and to be with this wonderful audience. Thanks, Karishma. In such short notice.
Really, she's been amazing.
Yeah, she's been amazing. When I texted, I must say, this when I texted her and I said, please, Karishma, please say yes to it. So that because it was very short time, I know I had to send her the book, she had to read it, and just to read.
And on digital format. Who likes to read in digital?
I actually came and took my book immediately. I said, I need a book. I need to read this book.
I know, I couldn't send her the physical copy of the book. It was so short a time and she had to read it. Thanks both of you. And I take this opportunity to thank our media partner, my Kolkata, and of course Taj Bengal, and the wonderful audience. I think all of you have enjoyed this wonderful session. I would now request Shefali Rawat, the SAS women of Kolkata, to felicitate Koël with a piece of Dokra.
Oh, thank you. Can I say one? It was a really fun author's evening. And this is something Chiki Sarkar, which you probably, she's a very famous publisher also from this part of the world originally. She said to me, because I was like, okay, she's a friend and I went to her for advice. I'm becoming an author. What do I need to do? She goes, please, just be yourself. Don't suddenly turn into some jhola wala because you think you need to be. Because we think this, right? That now I need to play the part of being an author, right? I need to become an author. And this is something I've taken away very seriously, not from writing, but from being an author, is whatever is you, no matter what you do, just be you, and everything else will fall into place. You don't have to go and turn into something just because you're, suddenly wearing a new hat. You don't have to be a particular, you don't have to look a certain way because you're playing a mother, or you are a mother. Like, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, sure. I request Shefali Rawat, SAS Women of Kolkata, to felicitate Koël with the small Dokra. Dokra is a non-ferrous metal, beautifully molded by artisans to craft artifacts, accessories, utensils, and jewelry, owing its name to the Dogra Damar tribe of West Bengal. This ancient metal craft practice is not only practiced in Bengal but also extends to other cities and neighboring states like Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Kerala.
Wow, I know exactly where it's going to go in my Parisian home. Yeah.
पीछे अब न देखना, रात थी यहाँ और हो रहा है अब तो सवेरा। हमने तो ये सीखा, कुदरत को है पता, हम सबको चाहिए क्या। कितना हंसी ये मौका है, तो रहे जागरूक और सही है जो वो